We landed in Denver beneath a sky the color of dry cement, the kind that doesn't promise rain but makes you feel like you're already wet. Hannah squeezed my hand at the baggage claim. I smiled for her. That's what I do. That's what I've always done. Smile through it. Swallow the insult. Write the check. 11 years. That's how long I've been in Lucas's life. Not as his father, he never allowed that, but as the man who kept the lights on, filled the fridge, signed the tuition checks, co-signed the car loan, and helped build the illusion of a stable family. I never asked to be called Dad. I didn't care about titles. What I wanted was respect, or at the very least, acknowledgement. But Lucas never gave me either. Not once. His gratitude came in shrugs, his conversations in grunts. And when I tried to get close, when I asked questions about his life, his plans, his fears, he'd look past me. Not through me. Past me. Like I was something temporary. Hannah always played diplomat. He's been through so much, she'd whisper. You're doing more than enough. Just give him time. I gave him time. I gave him half my life. It started with the little things. A summer job referral. A broken-down car. Then college applications, and somehow it was me attending the meetings, helping with the essays, wiring the deposits. His father, the man who left when Lucas was barely out of diapers, sent a Christmas card once every few years. Nothing more. No money. No calls. No presents. But Lucas talked about him like he was a war hero, a noble figure marred only by distance. The myth of a man who never stayed, never paid, never showed. I let it go. For Hannah's sake. For peace. But peace doesn't last when you're the one footing the bill while being treated like a piece of background furniture. Still, I played along. I drove him to campus in Arizona, unloaded his boxes, stood beside him in photos I knew he'd crop me out of. When Bella came into the picture, sharp dress, high heels, family with a country club membership, I saw the shift. Suddenly, he had to be someone. Suddenly, having a stepfather in construction didn't look good on the resume. We arrived at Bella's parents' estate the week before the wedding. A sprawling white brick colonial where the walls smelled like money and the air itself felt filtered. There were hors d'oeuvres I couldn't pronounce, conversations about vacation homes in Vail, and an unspoken hierarchy that put me somewhere beneath the valet. I smiled through it, like I always do, but then it happened. We were standing near the patio fireplace, drinking wine that cost more than any tool in my garage. I overheard Lucas talking to one of Bella's cousins, a tall kid with a boat shoe grin. They were laughing about wedding photos, about seating charts, about who belonged where. Then Lucas said it. That guy? He's one of Mom's failed phases. Just here to mess up the group photos. I didn't move, didn't blink. My chest tightened, but I kept the glass steady in my hand. Then he turned. He looked at me like I was gum stuck to the sole of his designer shoe and said, loud enough for Bella's mother to hear, "You're here to pay, not to be seen." That was the moment. Not when he forgot my birthday 2 years in a row. Not when he invited his real dad to his college graduation and made me sit in the back row. Not even when he asked me to cover the cost of his engagement ring without a thank you. No, this was different, because this time he did it deliberately. He humiliated me, in public, in front of his fiancée's family, in front of the same people who looked at me like I didn't belong. And worse, he wanted me to hear it. He needed me to hear it. Hannah didn't react. She was across the patio, sipping champagne with Bella's aunt. She didn't catch the words. Or maybe she did. Maybe she just didn't want to get involved. Maybe silence was easier than confrontation. I stood there a while longer, glass in hand, trying to remind myself how many years I'd carried him. How many things I said yes to while swallowing 100 numbers. I thought of the job I'd found him with my buddy from the contracting firm. How Lucas showed up 3 days late, worked 2, and quit. Said it was beneath him. Said I didn't understand ambition. He was right. I didn't understand the kind of ambition that steps on the people who gave you everything just to get a better view. Back at the hotel, I laid awake while Hannah curled into my side like nothing had happened, like everything was fine. I stared at the ceiling, counting the seconds between breaths, wondering how a boy I raised could look me in the eye and reduce me to a wallet with shoes. I thought of the countless sacrifices, The weekend projects I took just to afford his textbooks. The late nights I spent in the garage rebuilding his truck so he'd have something reliable. I remembered how he beamed when I handed him the keys. That was the closest thing to gratitude I ever got. And even then, he called Hannah. Not me. I should have said something then. I should have walked into the next room and told him to call his real father for the catering deposit. But I didn't. I stayed silent, like always, because I didn't want to be the villain, because I wanted to believe things would shift, just once, if I held on long enough. But something shifted in me instead. I stopped thinking of Lucas as my son that night. I stopped seeing Hannah as my partner. I stopped pretending this was a family, because a family doesn't treat you like a burden. A family doesn't ask for your blood and spit in your face. That moment on the patio was more than just cruel. It was a mirror. It showed me who I was in their lives. An accessory, a donor, a prop. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. The rehearsal dinner was held at a vineyard that Bella's family leased for special occasions. The kind of place where every napkin was folded by hand and the air smelled like eucalyptus and entitlement. I wore the same suit I'd worn to my mother's funeral. That felt appropriate. From the moment we arrived, I knew what my role was. Stay quiet, stay generous. The seating chart made it plain. Lucas's biological father, Greg, was placed at the head table center beside Lucas and Bella. Me? I was 3 rows down near the bathrooms. When I asked Hannah if that was a mistake, she said, Lucas didn't want to make Greg feel awkward, as if my comfort were disposable. Greg, the man who disappeared for 7 years and showed up last year with a tan and a watch he couldn't afford. The man who missed birthdays, graduations, hospital visits, and holidays, but still got a seat of honor because he had the right blood. Dinner passed in a blur of speeches and forced laughter. Bella's father made a toast. Greg made one too, filled with lines about watching my son grow into a man. No one corrected him. Hannah smiled politely. Lucas beamed. And me? I drank water and stared at the stem of my glass. I wasn't angry yet. Not truly. Not until Lucas stood, cleared his throat, and took the microphone. He tapped it twice, then began. I just want to thank everyone who supported us, believed in us, and stood by us. Family isn't just blood. It's loyalty. And tonight, I want to honor those who've always been there. And also, he smirked, eyes scanning the room until they landed on me. And also thank those pretending to be family, just here for the food and checkbook. Laughter. Real laughter. Even Bella chuckled, hand to her mouth. I didn't move at first. I sat there as the blood drained from my face, my chest tightening until it felt like I was breathing through cloth. No one said anything. Not Greg. Not Hannah. Especially not Hannah. So I stood. I walked to the front slowly, picked up a fresh glass of wine, took the mic. Here's to those who know the difference between love and leverage, I said, voice steady. To those who confuse money with meaning and blood with loyalty, I hope your meal is worth the price. Silence now. Not even a cough. I nodded, set the mic down, and walked out, before dessert even hit the table. Back at the hotel, I sat on the edge of the bed for what felt like hours. Hannah came in later. Her heels clicked against the tile, but she didn't say a word. She just peeled off her jewelry, as if nothing had happened. As if her son hadn't humiliated me in front of 100 people. As if her silence wasn't complicity. I asked once, just once, did you hear what he said? She didn't look at me. It was a joke. You took it too personally. That was the answer. That was all I needed to know. The next morning, I canceled the remaining payments. The photographer deposit, the catering balance, the final tent installment. All of it. Nearly $7,000. I sent polite emails to each vendor. No explanations. Just cancellations. The credit card refunds started to roll in by noon. The invitation? Revoked. Lucas didn't call. Neither did Hannah. 3 days passed. Then 4. The silence was louder than the insult. On the 5th day, Hannah broke it. You embarrassed him, she said. He was under pressure. He didn't mean it. I didn't answer. She went on. You're the adult. You should have just smiled and let it pass. I turned to her then. Where were you when he humiliated me in front of everyone? Why didn't you speak up? She looked away. That same flinch she always had when accountability crept too close. They need the money, she said finally. They can't afford the DJ and tent without you. There it was. Not love. Not remorse. A transaction. Always a transaction. I said, I already gave them the most expensive gift. A lesson in dignity. Hannah's face twisted, not in grief, in anger. You ruined everything. I didn't argue. I just left the room. On the day of the wedding, I wasn't in a pew or at a podium. I was standing at the edge of a quiet lake an hour north of Denver. My rod was cast. My coffee was black. The wind was soft. I caught nothing. I needed nothing. Later, I heard the wedding went on. They found a last-minute DJ. Bella looked tense in the photos, Lucas looked lost, and Greg stood in my place. The father in blood, not in sacrifice. I studied that photo once. Just once. The way Lucas leaned toward Greg. The way Hannah smiled for the camera like nothing was broken. And I saw it clearly. I had been replaced, not because I wasn't enough, but because they never saw me to begin with. They didn't lose me. They never claimed me. And for the first time in 11 years, I chose myself. 5 days before the wedding, Hannah came to me. Not with an apology. Not with understanding. But with a problem that needed solving. We need the money for the DJ and the tent, she said, like she was reading off a grocery list. They tried to make it work without you, but the budget's tight. Can you wire the funds by tomorrow? I didn't answer right away. I looked at her, really looked. The face I used to trust. The voice I used to fall asleep to. Now reduced to a message carrier, delivering someone else's request as if it were her own. Maybe it was. Did he ask you to come? I said. She blinked. He's your son. No, I said. He's your son. He made that clear. Hannah folded her arms. He went too far. We both know that. But you're the adult. You're supposed to forgive. I did forgive, I said. For years. Every slight. Every cold shoulder. Every missed birthday message. Every time he talked over me at dinner. Every time he ignored what I gave and you let it slide. That's not fair. I held up a hand. Fair? You think this is about fair? I spent a decade funding a life for a boy who refused to say thank you, who stood in front of a crowd and reduced me to a punchline. And now he wants my money, not my presence. She didn't respond. I continued. Tell Lucas I already gave him the most expensive gift a man like me can give. A lesson in dignity. Whether he learns from it, that's up to him. She shook her head, eyes narrowing. You're going to ruin his wedding out of pride. No, I said. It was already ruined the moment you decided silence was easier than standing up for me. She stormed out, door slamming hard enough to rattle the frames on the wall. For a moment I thought I'd feel regret. I waited for it. Nothing came. The morning of the wedding I didn't shave, didn't dress, didn't check the time. I drove to the lake just after sunrise, thermos of black coffee in the passenger seat, folding chair in the back. The sky was so clear it hurt to look at. I sat up on the bank, rod in hand, boots in the soft mud. The world quiet except for birdsong and the occasional ripple on the water. Hours passed. No phone calls. No messages. Just the wind and my own thoughts, unbothered for once by someone else's needs. Around noon, I turned off my phone. Whatever they needed could wait. Or vanish. I imagined the wedding in fragments. Bella pacing in a silk robe, hair curled, makeup perfect, panic rising. Lucas in a too-tight tux, sweating through his undershirt, dialing my number, cursing when it rang out. Greg fumbling through a speech I'd written 2 years ago. The one Lucas asked me to draft, just in case. I imagined them scrambling, improvising, pretending like nothing was missing. But something was missing. Not just money. Not just coordination. Me. I was missing. The man who knew how to hold things together, quietly, invisibly. The man they'd all trained themselves to overlook until his absence became a gaping wound they couldn't stitch shut. At dusk, I packed up and left. No fish. No regrets. That night, Hannah didn't come home. I noticed her suitcase was gone from the corner of the bedroom. The toothbrush missing from the holder. No note. No explanation. Just absence like mine, only colder. 3 days passed before I heard from anyone. Lucas didn't call. He emailed. Subject line: "We need to talk." No greeting. No apology. Just, "Bella's parents are furious. We had to use a credit card for the DJ and tent, and now we're drowning in interest. I don't know why you're doing this. You made your point. Can we talk like adults?" I didn't respond. 2 days later, another email. "You humiliated us. We looked like amateurs in front of her whole family. If you loved Mom, you'd have handled this differently." Still no apology. Just blame. Just more proof that in Lucas's world, everything he touched had to orbit him. His feelings, his image, his needs. I ignored the message. The next one came from Hannah. "Please, we can't start our marriage like this. Don't let this become permanent. Lucas was wrong, yes, but you're being cruel. We all made mistakes." That one hurt, not because she asked for peace, but because she still couldn't name the wound. Still couldn't say what he did. Still couldn't say my name without tying it to a $sign. The fourth message was short. "You were never my father. But I didn't think you'd make that so clear." That one made me laugh. Bitter and brief. He had made that clear, not me. They spent over a decade reminding me I wasn't family. Now they were mad I acted like it. Another week passed. The house stayed quiet. The bed stayed half empty. I got used to it. I mowed the lawn. I cleaned the gutters. I made eggs in the morning, toast at night. I started reading again. Thick, heavy books I never had time for. I played blues records and let the sound rattle the walls. For the first time in years, I heard my own thoughts without interruption. A month passed before Lucas showed up. He didn't knock at first. He just stood on the porch, suit wrinkled, tie undone, eyes hollow. When I opened the door, he didn't speak. Just looked past me into the house like it was a museum of a life he never learned to value. "Where's Mom?" he asked. "Gone," I said. Took a few bags. Said nothing. He nodded. I figured. Then he looked at me, really looked, for the first time in years. And I saw it, the cracks in the mask, the weight of the debt, the calls from the bank, the argument with Bella, the slow, sinking realization that money doesn't just appear when you snap your fingers, that someone always pays. "I messed up," he said. I didn't respond. "I was cruel," he went on. "I thought you'd swallow it like always. But you didn't. You walked. And I get it now. I do." I studied him. He looked older, smaller. "I didn't just hurt you," he said. "I exposed myself. I showed everyone what kind of man I was. And now I don't know how to fix it." Still, I said nothing. "I'm not here for money," he said. "I'm not asking for that. I'm asking for forgiveness." That word, heavy as bricks, empty in the wrong mouth, but something in his voice made me pause. It wasn't desperation. It was something quieter. Shame. "You didn't break my heart," I said. "You helped protect it. You showed me who you were before I spent another decade building a house on sand." He looked down, swallowed. "I forgive you," I said. "But that doesn't mean we're good. Forgiveness isn't restoration. It's acknowledgement. You want this back? You build the bridge. One plank at a time. No shortcuts." He nodded. "Okay." I closed the door slowly. Not in his face, but in his past. And for the first time, when I exhaled, I didn't feel resentment. Just space. Lucas might change. He might not. But me? I chose myself. Lucas never came back with another apology. Not in person. Not by phone. There were no grand gestures. No handwritten letters. No public posts or messages from Bella. Just silence, long, echoing, and maybe necessary. A week passed. Then 2. The house stayed quiet. Hannah stayed gone. Some nights I'd stand in the kitchen, whiskey glass in hand, and stare out the window at the back fence I built with my own hands. Hands that had hammered nails for this family even when it wasn't mine. I used to imagine Lucas helping with that fence, shoulder to shoulder, sweat and sawdust bonding us. But he never did. He had other places to be, other men to call Dad when it suited the script. And Hannah, she'd watch from the porch with a soft smile, always telling me I was doing more than enough. That smile meant something different now. One day I got a package in the mail. No return address. Inside was a frame, a wedding photo. Lucas and Bella standing at the altar. Everyone smiling. Everyone posed. Except for one thing. The center of the image was slightly off. Greg stood where I was meant to, head tilted too far. Hand awkward on Lucas's shoulder. It looked wrong. Manufactured. The caption on the back read, "Thank you for everything, L and B." No apology. No message of reconciliation. Just that, a thank you buried in politeness, the kind of thank you people send to former bosses or realtors. I set it on the mantle for one day, then boxed it up and moved it to the garage. I wasn't angry anymore, just awake. I'd spent over a decade giving without return, waiting for respect that was never coming, hoping that sacrifice would one day be recognized, not with a medal or a toast, but with something far simpler, a place, a real one, in photos, in decisions, in hearts. I never got it. Hannah didn't call until mid-November. Said she needed to talk things through. She sounded tired. Not sorry, just tired. Like life hadn't gone the way she planned, and now she was circling back to the man she once considered dependable. "I shouldn't have let him speak to you that way," she said. "But he's still young. You're the only real father he's had." I let her talk. I didn't interrupt. But inside something hardened. The way she said it, still young. As if 30 was the new 15. As if cruelty had an age limit. As if I hadn't spent my best years waiting for her to stop excusing disrespect. She asked to meet. I declined. She said we could work through this. I said I'd already done the work. Alone. A few nights later, I stood on the deck with a blanket draped over my shoulders, listening to the wind roll through the pines. The same lake where I fished on their wedding day now shimmered under the moon like it was trying to whisper something back. Maybe that I'd done the right thing. Maybe that peace isn't something given. It's something claimed when you finally walk away from what doesn't feed you. Lucas hasn't reached out since that afternoon on the porch. No news. No drama. I imagine they're busy. Bills to pay. Reputations to maintain. Maybe he's still telling people I was a phase. Maybe Bella's friends think I bailed out because I was petty. Let them. Let them tell whatever story gets them through the night. But here's mine. I came into their lives not to be a hero, but to be helpful. I stepped in when another man stepped out. I gave without needing to be praised. I stood in silence while others took credit, took space, took love that I had poured into every meal, every payment, every damned birthday card. I was never asking for sainthood. I just wanted decency. And when it never came, when it was mocked, erased, laughed at in front of strangers, I walked away. That isn't cruelty. That's clarity. You don't keep feeding hands that slap you. You don't stay in rooms where you're only welcome for your wallet. You don't keep calling yourself father when the room falls silent every time you say it. Lucas may learn, or he may not. That's his road to walk. Mine is quieter now. Mornings start with coffee, not requests. Evenings end in silence, not in sighs of exhaustion. The money I used to wire for dreams that weren't mine now sits untouched. Savings not just of cash, but of soul. People say you can't put a price on dignity. They're wrong. It cost me $173,240. I kept the records, tuition, rent, groceries, cars, engagement gifts, wedding deposits, over 11 years. Every cent backed by patience, labor, and faith. So when I walked away, I wasn't leaving empty-handed. I was taking back everything they never bothered to value. And maybe that's what fatherhood really is, not biology, not proximity, but the choice to give without asking. And when the giving turns into erasure, the wisdom to stop. I gave him everything. He gave me a title I never asked for. The washed-up guy. Well, this washed-up guy is finally clean. So tell me honestly, would you have stayed? Would you have smiled through that speech? Opened your checkbook and clapped politely from the back row while your place was filled by a man who mailed it in once a decade? Would you have kept showing up for a family that never once showed up for you? Or would you have walked out like I did? Not in bitterness, not in rage, but in truth? Because here's the truth they'll never say out loud. They needed me more than I ever needed them. And when the money stopped, the love vanished too. So now I ask you, was I wrong? Or did I just finally believe them when they said I didn't belong?